Hello, the doc is in and welcome back to another chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 198. In the last chapter, which was 2 weeks ago, sadly, made me cry, but last chapter, we basically have Maki experiencing the high of liberation, freedom, if you will, her Gear 5th moment, and basically bossing up. Now he becomes irrelevant. She stunts on him, and so does the Swordmaster and the Sumo guy. And basically, they get the kibosh on Naoya and kill him, or so we thought. And apparently, his lower half sprouts the normal form of Naoya. No explanation on that. And he opens the domain, Temporal Womb Moon Palace. Technically, that's the first page of the next chapter, but it all goes together. All right. Anyway, so the chapter starts off. We get to see his domain. Really cool design. Got the eye in the background. It's kind of weird, like it's organy, which doesn't seem like it goes along with his domain. If you're going just based on the idea of projection, sorcery, and all that stuff, but we get an explanation for that. But anyway, so you get this big panel. You see that Sumo guy, Sword guy, they're the only two ones there in the domain, and they're looking at Naoya, right? They see this like big eye thing, and then a bunch of film like goes into their necks, and Naoya looks all happy or whatever, and they're like, well, we were hit with something, but it didn't seem to do anything, so strike. And they move in for an attack, and then immediately as soon as they move, they start gushing blood from a bunch of different areas, right? And we get a little bit of an explanation of it. And basically, it works the same way his usual technique works. So same like, oh, you gotta fit the certain number of frames. I believe it's 24 for Naoya. And he's like, oh, you know, if you don't fit the 24 frames, whatever. The difference is that it's in his domain. It's kind of like that on a higher scale. As you know, he can inflict his rules of projection sorcery on someone by touching them, and if they don't move within 24 frames, they get stuck in a frame for a second. This happens, but to every cell of their body. So what that means is they have to move in a way that fits all, that has every single part of their body fit into the frame rule, lest it seems that basically what probably happens is that each individual cell gets stuck in the frame for a second, and then because, you know, tiny thing is hitting all the other cells it's next to, it explodes. Just like how when you're in the actual frame thing, then that's when usually people use projection sorcery, Nabito or Naoya, then hit you and they get a bunch of damage off, or when they do it with the air, all that stuff, right? And so that's what I'm guessing causes them to start bleeding. Once again, it's kind of hard to explain. Just if it is, they're in danger, all right? They're not in good straits. They can't move without taking damage, basically. And so Sumo guy just goes straight down, all right? He goes down. Sword guy's still up, but he's kind of like, dang, I can't even really move right now. And so now he's like, well, that's the case in my domain. Haha, hee ha. And so he's like, well, where's Maki at? I want to see her bleed out and die. And so he's looking around. He's like, I can't sense her. It must be because he has no cursed energy. But he thinks about it again. He's like, hold on. That shouldn't be that way. Because if she's in my domain, I should be able to sense her no matter what. Because it's my domain. And so as he's thinking about this, Sword guy goes in for a cut. But he's just not quick enough. And he gets his hand chopped off. And the sword stolen from him. Now he is holding the sword. Oh, yeah, actually, hold on. I may have misread this. No, he cuts his arm, and obviously Sword Guy doesn't have his arm anymore, so the sword goes flying. But what Naoya doesn't notice is that when he cuts the arm, the sword goes flying. Maki grabs it, and then from behind him, stabs him straight through the chest. All right, full assassination style, straight through the center. And so we get an explanation of like, oh, how does this all work and whatever. So what basically happens is that Maki's effectively immune to domain expansion. How does this work? Well, because she has no cursed energy, like at all, she's basically registered within the domain as a structure. So she's kind of pushed out, or the domain basically kind of like forms avoiding her, so to speak. So unless the domain is like Megumi's domain, where it uses a physical area as the zone, so to speak. So think of how Megumi used the gymnasium against Reggie to make his domain like a full space, rather than just having like land that you can exit freely and whatever. So because of that, basically the domain formed away from her, and the only way she can get in or be attacked by the domain is if she chooses to go inside. So basically, domain expansion does not work on her, which is kind of wacky, because I'm pretty sure that was like a big point of like, oh, why people with heavenly restriction can't win against sorcerers, because like domain expansion. Well, apparently that don't work that way. It just doesn't. So he stabs Naoya, right? And then we get a little, I guess you could say, soul melding, whatever, between Maki and Mai. And they're talking, and basically Mai's like, hey, you did a good job destroying everything. I mean, it's a good thing I gave myself to that sweaty old guy to teach you how to use this stuff, so that then you could become quality peak performance like I sacrificed myself for. And so we get a little explanation, a little more, not explanation, but a little bit more deeper understanding of what this sword can actually do. So first off, it's a replica of the sword Toji had, which is called Soul Liberation Blade. What can this blade do? Well, exactly what it says it does. It can rip souls. You cut souls with the blade. It ignores defenses, you just get soul sliced. And the only way to achieve the ability of the sword is that the person wielding the blade has to be able to see souls. And so this kind of gives us hold on, let me not get too far, but we're touching on that in the discussion section, right? So now, yeah, he's not dead. He's still cursed, so he's not actually in a human body. He like contorts his neck backwards, and he's like, well, you're gonna regret having not killed me in the first move, because now you're dead. And so he stretches out his head kind of like in worm form, and I guess he's gonna like try to bite her or whatever. And he's like, oh, well, you're in my domain, you got a thingy. And then she slices him, hits him with the cut, didn't even move, just like shoo. And he's like, what are you? You're supposed to be hit by my effect. And as his head splits in half, because Maki has no cursed energy, the domain couldn't even recognize her once she was in there to hit her with the sure hit. Ergo meaning she didn't have to meet the rules, which she probably could have, but she didn't have to meet the rules. Therefore meaning Naoya dies. And the end of the chapter is the story recognizing that another fierce human on par with Zenin Toji has been fully realized. A god of war reborn. End of chapter. Very good chapter overall. I enjoyed the reveals. I definitely like the fact of basically getting clarified, like, what things could she see that other people couldn't see. Well, she can see the souls of inanimate objects, and I assume souls of real people as well. What that means exactly, I'm not quite sure. I mean, there's a lot of directions this could go, but interesting, just a little development, something that might get looked over by some people. Definitely important. Another thing, sword basically ignores all durability, goes straight for the kill on your soul. Ergo meaning, if Mahito was still walking around at this time, Maki would be able to solo. Like, he'd be like, oh, well, he can't hurt me because he can't hit my soul. The sword doesn't care. She goes for a slice, you're finished. So good thing he got neg diffed by Ghetto Says by Kinchaku, because yeah, that would have been rough. Definitely see. Oh, another thing, samurai guy used one hand to use a sword, whatever. His hand got cut off. Now reverse crit technique could, I think, fix his hand, but as it stands right now, I think he's done because he only has one other hand. We don't know that he can use his other hand to wield the blade. So interesting, but he's not dead. That's an important thing to point out. He could have just been murdered, but his hand was only cut off. So there is definitely a case to be made for the idea that maybe more might go on with him, or in terms of him like getting healed so that then he can fight more. We'll see. And something I noticed throughout this chapter, I think somewhat last chapter, but definitely this chapter especially, what the heck happened to Kamo no Toshi? Well, whatever happened to him? He wasn't in the domain, or at least he wasn't pictured in the domain, and we didn't see him even at the end of the chapter when the domain was destroyed. So I don't remember him moving, and he was there when they was about to start fighting. Well, again, once Maki got the power up and everything. So it's interesting. I don't know, maybe Kamo was kind of left out because he wasn't really important and he was already like dying or whatever. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But I'm sure we'll get like explanation for it. Maybe next chapter we get like elaboration, like, oh, this is what they're gonna do now, something. But yeah, I kind of sad that Noritoshi didn't get to like contribute more to the fight, and or just being able to get a power up so that then, you know, going forward he's more relevant. Because as it stands right now, I think he's like grade 1, semi-grade 1. Obviously everything we're messing with at this point, special grade and up can go pretty high. So it's like, dang, how's Combo supposed to participate if fighting Naoya in curse form was like it for him, and now Maki's so far above him that she negative him in his domain, the disrespect. So yeah, I mean, L to my boy, but oh well, is what it is. But I think that's about it. So leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you dislike, comment, what do you think happened to my boy Kamo? Do you think Samurai Guy is gonna continue fighting with us? Is he just gonna kind of drop out because he's lost his sword hand? He's like, oh no, my sword hand, whatever. Is Sumo Guy gonna continue on? I mean, he didn't really get too injured beyond just I guess cell explosion, but we'll see. But yeah, leave a comment about that, and then feel free to subscribe if you like videos like these. Ring the notification bell. You want to see more videos like these every time a chapter comes out. Subscribe. I also cover a number of other series. Check it out on the channel. You know, whatever. Thank you again for watching this far, or skipping to this part because you're a weirdo. Anyway, the duck is out. Peace.